What is the most embarrassing way your body has betrayed you?
Story 1. I have IBS and get a really insanely distended stomach full of gas when I eat certain foods. It looks like there's a basketball under my skin and it's all gas. My boyfriend of a year or so knew about my IBS but hadn't really experienced the worst of it. One day we were hanging out at my apartment and I had my big gas belly. He knew what that meant, so I excused myself to my room to try and fart some of it out. He decided to come in to show me something on his phone as I'm laying on my bed with my knees up trying to coax the gas out. He starts laughing at the sight. I start laughing. I feel an epic release of gas coming and I try to tell him to leave as soon as possible, but I'm also laughing. Between the laughter and the position I was in, I couldn't hold it back. I let out the loudest, longest fart in history. At first, he laughed in surprise, and then as it kept going on and on, his face changed from laughter to surprise to shock, mixed with what looked like a twinge of sadness. Watching him go through so many emotions right on his face just made me laugh harder, so the fart just kept going. After what feels like an eternity, he steps out of the room, hands over his mouth. He comes back in, and the fart is finishing off with a final toot toot toot. He is speechless. The first thing he said is, "I feel like I lived 80 years, died, and came back to life again before that fart ended. I just don't understand how it was so long and steady." And then it got all Louis Armstrong at the end. And that's how we started calling certain trumpety farts Louis. Also, we moved in together a few months later, so my butt performance didn't deter him too much. First off, without context, that last sentence is a little wild. But second, that's an amazing story. And I, for one, applaud you and starting off this video on a very wonderful tenor. Story 2. I peed myself in class. I was wearing a skirt and no tights. I was 17. It was my first year of college, and the lecture lasted 4 hours. I held it as long as I possibly could until at some point I was 100% certain I would pee myself as soon as I stood up. I couldn't excuse myself to the bathroom because I'd peed myself on the way in front of everybody. I'd pee myself on the way in front of everybody. So I stayed. I waited until the other students left, but they didn't. Of course, they had questions for the professor. Some lingered. I got out, miraculously made it out of the classroom. Then as soon as I was out of the door, I couldn't hold it anymore. I kneeled down on the floor, pretended to look for something in my bag. Someone even asked if I was okay, hoping against all hope that no one would notice the puddle at my feet. I kept pretending to look in my bag for 5 more minutes until everyone was gone, then walked to the nearest bathroom to dry myself as best I could. Then I went home, changed my underwear, and dried my skirt and shoes with a hairdryer because it would look suspicious if I came back with different clothes. No one ever mentioned it. To this day, I wonder if some did see it and avoid talking about it, who spare me the embarrassment, or if I somehow managed to hide it. At 17, you worry everyone will notice you change clothes. At 19, you realize no one will give a frick. Who gives a 4-hour lecture without having a bathroom break in there? That's wild. I could not go 4 hours without needing a bathroom break. That's ridiculous. And I mean, honestly, I'll tell you this, folks. If you're like in a college lecture and you gotta pee, just get up and go pee. Especially in a lecture hall with all those students. If the professor's the kind of person who'd be like, excuse me, where do you think you're going? You'd throw a book at that professor. F off.
Story 3. I danced classical ballet for years when I was younger. One day when I was 12, we were doing a stretch where we were lying on our backs with our butts scooted to the wall and our legs stretched toward the ceiling. We would let our legs fall into the splits, letting gravity to assist us. So we were lying there listening to quiet piano music, my legs wide open, and the girl next to me was whispering jokes and making me giggle. I could feel the onslaught of explosive gas happening, but being young and stupid, I was afraid to close my legs because I thought I'd get in trouble. So I ripped the loudest, most terrifying fart to ever exist. I think I blew a hole in my little pink leotard. I swear to God, the room was a huge wooden studio, so that fart from heck was bouncing off the walls for like 15 minutes. All the little girls started screaming, I was screaming, and the teacher was probably screaming. Still gives me nightmares. Story 4. I once went to school when I felt really sick. Within 10 minutes of me being at school, my stomach started cramping, and I informed the teacher I was going home. It's about a 10-minute drive with my bike. Every time I went over the littlest bump, my stomach started hurting really bad. Not even 2 minutes of me biking to my house, and I stop and throw up. I throw up so bad that I start crapping my pants. A lot. Some of my friends start driving by, but I don't think they notice me. I call my dad, who didn't have any way of bringing me home. He did, however, have a scooter. He comes along and I tell him I need to go home, but not on the bike. He tells me there's no other way, so I get on the bike with crap still in my pants and we drive home together. This is the ultimate duo, Scooter Dad and Crap Pants Kid.
Scooter Dad and Crap Pants Kids, this fall on Fox. I just think that's not a story that I think you'll ever feel 100% good about, but at least you felt good enough to share it here and give us all a bit of a chuckle, so don't be too hard on yourself.
Story 5. 2 hours train ride. I felt the air coming slowly, but I held it back until the end. Finally, the next stop was mine, so I stood up and walked to the door, still holding back that now massive amount of air in my colon. Just when the doors were about to open, some child stumbled into me from behind. It surprised me so much that I, just for a moment, didn't hold in. The result was the loudest, most disgusting fart you could ever imagine. I never left the train station faster in my entire life. OP is resting with one hand on a wall, breathing heavily from running for 20 minutes. He looks up and sees a TV in a pub with closed captions. Concentrated fart in a local train proves deadly. One child has been killed and many more hospitalized. Oh crap. Keep running. Story 6. Last summer I tripped over something while walking on the sidewalk. Happens every now and then, no big deal. It normally just looks like a funny skip or something. Except this time I kind of leaped forward into the air and somehow the normal response message to put my hands before me didn't reach its destination, so I just dropped into the ground like a human sack of potatoes. It was about equally painful and embarrassing. Still don't know how the frick happened. Brain blue screens. Story 7. One time I was really sick, so I went to throw up in the toilet, and as I started throwing up, I simultaneously started pooping myself as well. Once you start throwing up, you can't exactly stop until you're done, so I just kept throwing up while pooping for the smelliest, most uncomfortable 5 minutes or so of my life. Ever since, I stopped being able to throw up like a normal person. I'm always scared I'll crap myself, so I sit on the toilet, bending over a bucket, even though it's harder to throw up that way. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this trip down memory lane as much as I did.
A lot of people pooping themselves in this video, and I do genuinely feel bad for these folks, because that's not a fun memory to have, I imagine, but, you're sharing it. We can all have a laugh about it. Frankly, I think we need to remember that everybody poops themselves eventually.
Story 8. In a meeting with my managers, they're complaining about X, Y, and Z that I haven't achieved. I'm not upset about the criticisms. If anything, I'm angry to have to hear them, but for some bizarre reason, my eyes started watering. We'd have these meetings weekly, and every time my eyes would water and tears would pour. It started just happening when I wasn't even angry, and even in normal angry situations, I'd never tear up, just in those meetings. Oh my God, I have the same thing. Whenever I'm confronted by something by a superior, I start crying for some reason. It sucks because I don't want them to think I'm upset about minor things, because I'm not. Story 9. 5th grade, math test. Felt a sneeze coming and tried to hold the sneeze in to maintain the mandated silence. Ended up farting on a wooden seat chair that resonated the sound perfectly. So basically, Story 10. Boner at the psychiatrist. Hit it pretty well, but it was still towards the end of the session. That was just a dream, Tony Soprano. Story 11. I was sitting on the floor in my cheap wooden condo and let out a huge fart. Dog in the condo below me started barking, and I could hear the cute girl who lived there and her visiting parents laughing. Should have said excuse me loud enough for them to hear. Story 12. I stood up from sitting at work and screamed in pain because I got a cramp behind my nutsack. I don't know how to explain it, but that's where I felt the pain, laughed my butt off. My coworkers were dying of laughter when I explained what my scream was. Sometimes at the end of a full pee, I get this sharp feeling, but it goes away pretty quickly. WebMD says I have 935 years to live.
I gotta say, if I stood up and felt a cramp behind my sack, I don't think I'd be embarrassed so much as I would be in a panic to get to a doctor immediately.
Story 13. In 6th grade, I got a boner for no reason and then was asked to hand something to the teacher. When I stood up, this girl that sat near me stared right at my crotch with wide eyes. I'm just thankful she didn't tell anyone, or I might not have heard the end of it. Whew, her reaction. Story 14. When I was in high school, I started a period without any of the usual symptoms and left a bloody puddle on the chair and a huge stain on my jeans. This happened to me, except I knew what was happening. My male teacher had a blanket, no using the bathroom during class rule, and I was too embarrassed to tell him what was going on. Junior high teachers, it is not okay to forbid a 13-year-old girl, or boy for that matter, from using the bathroom. Story 15. Farted the most rancid fart of death in 6th grade. The teacher somehow knew it was me and kicked me out of class, told me to go to the nurse and have someone pick me up because she was convinced I had to be sick to produce such a toxic stench. I thought it was cool. I got to get out of school, though, and my dad thought it was hilarious. Story 16. Anytime I've finished peeing and get zipped up and a little more pee dribbles out and leaves a little wet pee spot on my pants, the worst. I once peed before intercourse and the girl looked down to see the telltale dark spot of pee dribble on my briefs. I was embarrassed.
Okay, folks. Okay, folks. I'm only commenting here because if you haven't seen the animation by Red Minus, I don't even remember what it's called. Just look up Red Minus P or something like that, and you'll see an animation about this that's one of my favorites. I laugh hysterically every time. If I'm down, I find this animation and watch it. It's perfect.
Story 17. Panic attack. Nothing was wrong, just my heart did not want to be in my chest for some reason. I get panic attacks so often. Feels like my chest is being crushed. I swear one day I will die of a heart attack just assuming it's panic. They are the worst feelings. Story 18. Went to pick up a pencil while sitting at my school desk around 7th grade. Loud fart rips its way out with no warning. We were doing worksheets, so class was super quiet until that moment. By now, I'm sure everyone else has forgotten, but I haven't. Story 19. I was on my first date ever. We were at her house watching a movie, and I was nervous as frick, so gas started accumulating in my gut, and it started to hurt. I couldn't go to the bathroom because it was next to her room, so it would sound like a machine gun was being fired off in there. I just tried to hold it in. Anyway, halfway into the movie, my guts were like, okay, this is enough, and let a massive one ripped. Girl acted like she was cool with it, but never messaged me again. Kind of funny looking back. Should have gone to the restroom and separated your butt cheeks so no sound would be created.
I love that this person has the plan of just go in the bathroom, spread those cheeks, and it'll just... I mean, yeah, I guess. But unless you pull too hard, then it's gonna like whistle or be like when you stretch a balloon, it's like whee!
Story 20. My period started during class 3 days early, and it was very heavy and soaked my underwear and pants. Thankfully, my students didn't notice, but I had to leave work early. M. Night strikes again. Certainly wasn't expecting that. Sorry about your day, though. Story 21. Not being able to burp or fart when I wanted to, but becoming Grandmaster Butt Gas when most inappropriate. Grandmaster Butt Gas has me in tears. Story 22. I once farted 3 times inside the 40 minutes in front of a girl in her home. They were not loud, but definitely audible. I apologized every single time, and she told me not to worry about it, but I could see she was dumbfounded. I just couldn't help it. I don't know what was wrong with my butt muscles that day, but they played some serious matador defense on me. Haven't spoken with her since, and keep in mind we're still neighbors, so we see each other a few times a month. We just say hi, and that's it. My butt muscles totally lost its control ability, and nowadays it's just let loose instantly no matter where I am. It's terrible. I can't even be anywhere around people without anxiety. Story 23. My husband was peeing me off the other day, and I tried to fart on him and crapped myself. 2 of your comments have had me in creases today. Big up yourself.
I'm so sad that there's not like a video of this or something. Like, you're mad, so you're like, I'm gonna fart on him, and then you crapped yourself. Like, it's gross. I don't know how you all reacted in that moment, but if that happened to me, like if I was a person that you were trying to fart on and that happened, I would never stop laughing. Never.
Story 24. When I inadvertently spit on the monitor when I'm explaining something to someone. Story 25. Second date with my now wife. I was cooking dinner for her. With a little gas pressure, I thought I could release it quietly. I was wrong. It wasn't horrible and didn't really smell, but still, letting one rip on our second date was not in the plans for the evening. I simply shrugged, looked at her, and said, "Oh wow, it's way too early in the relationship for that. I'm so sorry." She laughed and shrugged it off. We've been together almost 15 years. Story 26. In middle school, we always used to have to do jumping jacks. Story 27. Was hanging out with my boyfriend at his parents' house and was in his room, and we were just being silly, and in the moment of silence, I farted for the first time in front of him super loud, and at the same moment his mom walked in and silently turned around and left, and he starts laughing at my super shocked face and the situation, and then I let out another slow, drawn-out, loud fart. It was hilarious, but oh my gosh, it was embarrassing at the time. It only happened like maybe 6 weeks ago. You'll end up married. Embrace it. In all my years, a girl farting has only strengthened the relationship. Story 28. Boner in gym class. Story 29. At the water park when my period decided to make its appearance. Didn't realize until I stepped out of a wave pool and heard a kid scream, "Mommy, there's red stuff in the water." Looked back to see a very obvious blood trail leading directly to me. Immediately hot-footed it to the showers where I found a huge stain on my cover-up. 30 minutes later, I casually walked out of the showers, fully dressed, my swimsuit and cover-up washed out and stuffed in my towel. The wave pool had been shut down, the lifeguards shocking the water to get rid of the blood. A mass of children lingered near the edge, many complaining loudly. My mom cocked an eyebrow at me as I shuffled back to our chairs, but said nothing. I've since gotten better at managing my cycle.
Okay, folks, I've avoided commenting on the period ones much just because I'm a guy. You don't want to necessarily hear my take on that stuff. But I will say, ladies, you should not be embarrassed. It is a natural thing that happens, and society making you feel that way is crap, and I'm sorry. But, it's a natural part of life, and I hope that none of you have to feel any sort of shame about it, because you shouldn't.
Story 30. Not sure if it's just me, but if a girl is going to sit on my lap, I will get a boner. I don't go around trying to get girls to do this, but I've had a few insist and then call me out for being a pervert when I tried my best to persuade otherwise. Story 31. At a movie night with some friends and girls in high school, I somehow coughed and sneezed at the same time, and a huge snot rocket flew out of my mouth and onto the blanket.
Oh God, I had that happen at the hairstylist place when I was a kid. Obviously, not recently.
Story 32. Never trust a fart. That is all I am saying. Story 33. Very rarely am I walking and either one of my legs will just give out for like half a second. It's never enough to fall or anything, but it does make me look like I don't know how to walk or that I may be drunk. Story 34. Do you know when you're having an important formal meeting and you're like internally farting? Very loud noises coming from your intestines? That. Story 35. I'm 30 years old. Last year, I crapped my pants. Full on. It was traumatic, shameful, and embarrassing. Be skeptical about any sounds your guts are making, people. Story 36. Brain, let's have a seizure. Bladder, awesome. This is as good a time as any to pee yourself in front of everyone.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.